So, if you think about it, we have millions of years of human evolution that went into developing our threat detection systems.
Oh, absolutely. Millions of years.
Right. Like, we are biologically hardwired to notice things. The shadow in the alley or a sudden drop in someone's vocal pitch.
Yeah, or just a subtle kind of tense shift in body language. We pick up on that instantly.
Exactly. But so what happens when you strip all of that away?
Well, that's the dangerous part.
It is. What happens when you shrink human interaction down to this brightly colored, frictionless, gamified interface, and then, you hand it to a brain that is just developmentally desperate for pure connection?
You don't just get a communication tool at that point.
No, you really don't. You get an environment where a predator can just entirely bypass the human amygdala.
Yeah, you get this landscape where the visual and auditory cues, the things that have literally kept us alive as a species, they're just replaced.
Replaced by, curated avatar.
Curated avatars and disappearing text. I mean, we are looking at a fundamental mismatch between ancient neurobiology and modern user interface design.
It's terrifying when you phrase it like that.
It is. The platform essentially neutralizes the very instincts that are designed to protect us. And it replaces them with these engineered dopamine loops.
Dopamine loops that just mimic the sensation of safety and belonging.
Exactly.
And the cost of that mismatch is exactly what we are exploring in this deep dive today.
And it's a heavy one.
It really is. Our source material today, it isn't some peer-reviewed psychological study or a technical white paper on platform architecture.
No, it's much more personal than that.
It's a single anonymous post from a woman on Reddit.
Just a few paragraphs.
Yeah, just a few paragraphs. But in them, she outlines this harrowing experience of digital exploitation and profound abuse. And it began when she was only 13 or 14 years old.
Such a vulnerable age.
Incredibly vulnerable. And she also writes about her ongoing, really complex journey toward recovery. So listen, we are stepping into a deeply sensitive space today.
We really are. We need to handle this with care.
Absolutely. The goal here isn't to dissect a crime purely for the sake of analysis, like a true crime recap. That's not what this is.
Not at all.
We are here to sit with her reality, to act as a supportive circle for her words, and to vigorously dismantle the architecture of coercion that she was subjected to.
Because when you truly understand how these traps are engineered, any lingering whisper of self-blame just completely disintegrates.
It has to. It absolutely has to. The words she chose to share require immense courage.
Oh, massive courage, especially given the weight of the hidden trauma she describes carrying around every day.
Yeah. By looking closely at the mechanics of what she endured, like how the manipulation evolved, how the digital infrastructure facilitated it, and the psychological aftermath, we validate her specific reality.
Right. And it equips you, the listener, to better comprehend the sheer endurance required to simply exist.
Just to move forward when carrying that kind of invisible burden.
Exactly.
So we really invite you to join us in this space today. We want to understand the long shadow of this specific kind of exploitation. But even more importantly, we want to recognize the quiet, extraordinary resilience of this survivor.
She is incredibly strong.
She is. So let's start at the chronological beginning of her account. We need to focus on the very first maneuver.
The weaponization of her developmental stage.
Right. She writes that this began when she was 13 or 14. A man added her on Snapchat, but he was using the account of a young girl.
Posing as a peer.
Yeah, posing as a peer. And she writes her reaction. She says, "I thought, wow, a girl added me."
Wow, a girl added me.
Yeah, and she describes herself in that moment in her post as a young, naive girl.
And the usage of the word naive there, that is something we really need to isolate immediately.
I agree completely. Let's pull that apart.
Because it's a retroactive judgment. She is applying that word to her adolescent self, but she's viewing it through the lens of the horrific trauma that followed.
Right. She's looking backward with information she didn't have then.
Exactly. At 13 or 14, the human brain is undergoing a massive critical pruning phase.
It's a huge developmental leap.
It is. The primary developmental directive at that specific age is social synchronization with peers.
Connecting with kids your own age.
Right. The attachment drive, it actively shifts from the parents to the peer group. It is a biological imperative to seek out new connections.
To want to be seen.
You want to be seen, to be accepted by people your own age. So her reaction, wow, girl added me. It is the absolute picture of healthy, normative adolescent development.
It's just an expression of joy, it's openness.
Pure openness.
But society, and tragically the victims themselves, they so often conflate that developmentally appropriate openness with a character flaw.
They call it naivety.
Right. Calling it naivety implies a deficit. It suggests there was some baseline level of suspicion or street smarts that she somehow failed to deploy.
Which is incredibly unfair to a 13-year-old.
It is. I look at this entirely differently. Like, think about a hiker walking through a forest.
Okay.
And they're on a designated, well-worn trail. The trail is explicitly designed for walking. It looks safe.
Right, you assume it's safe.
Right. And suddenly the ground gives way and they fall into a 10-foot pit.
Oh, wow.
You don't look down at the hiker in the pit and say, well, you were terribly naive to step on that patch of dirt.
No, of course not.
You recognize that someone spent hours, maybe days, meticulously digging a trap and covering it with pine needles and leaves to perfectly mimic the safe path.
The camouflage is the entire point.
Exactly. The camouflage, the burden of the deception rests entirely on the architect of the trap.
Not the person who believed the environment was what it claimed to be.
Right. Not the hiker. Not the 13-year-old girl.
Because the predator in this scenario, he understood something fundamental. He knew that approaching her as a 60-year-old man would trigger her threat detection systems immediately.
The stranger danger alarm would just ring loud and clear.
So loud. So what did he do? He didn't trigger it. He hijacked the camouflage of her exact peer group.
He wore the digital skin of a young girl to bypass the firewall.
That's a great way to put it. He didn't just trick her. He weaponized her normalcy. He weaponized her completely healthy desire for friendship.
And, we really have to look at the structural environment that allows that kind of camouflage to work so flawlessly.
The platform itself.
Yes, the trap was laid on Snapchat, a platform designed from the ground up to lower the friction of human connection.
It's all about speed and ease.
Right. We're talking about an ecosystem where the barrier to entry is just typing a username.
No background check.
No identity verification whatsoever. No mandatory tie to physical reality. It is a space built entirely on rapid, ephemeral, casual interactions.
And the interface itself, it acts as an anesthetic.
How do you mean?
Well, it's bright, right? It's filled with playful filters. It uses gamification like streaks to encourage constant daily engagement.
Right, you got to keep the streak alive. It feels fun.
It feels fun, and it feels contained. For a teenager, it feels like a digital extension of the school cafeteria or the locker room.
It feels like a space designated just for them.
Exactly. And because the environment feels inherently adolescent and safe, the defensive shields a child might normally raise if an unfamiliar adult approached them in a physical park.
Those shields are completely dormant online.
Completely dormant. The digital environment actively suppresses the instinct to scrutinize the interaction.
It creates this synthetic simulation of safety, like a costume party where the rules don't require anyone to ever take off their mask.
That's exactly what it is.
The platform strips away the friction. And the predator utilizes that frictionless environment to execute a highly sophisticated psychological operation against a middle schooler.
A literal child.
A child. So if you were listening to this, and especially if the author of this post ever hears this, the takeaway is absolute.
It has to be crystal clear.
Being deceived by a highly calculated adult manipulation at age 13 is never your fault. Never.
Your brain was doing exactly what a 13-year-old brain is supposed to do.
Exactly. The asymmetry of power here, the asymmetry of experience and malice, it is entirely owned by the 60-year-old man who built the trap.
We are talking about decades of life experience. He had an understanding of social dynamics and a complete willingness to exploit them.
Pitted against a kid who just wanted a friend.
It is an act of profound predatory calculation.
It really is.
And once that initial connection is made under the guise of this false peer identity, the dynamic shifts very quickly.
The grooming phase ends.
Yes. The grooming phase ends and the structural coercion begins.
This is where the timeline accelerates, right?
Yeah.
And the camouflage drops. The illusion of pure connection just shatters completely.
It's a terrifying pivot.
She notes in her posts that as they chatted, the truth came out. He revealed he was actually a 60-year-old man.
Just drop the mask.
Yeah. And he escalated the interaction immediately by wanting to call her.
Moving from text to voice.
Right. And she explicitly states in her post, I didn't want to.
She tried to set a boundary.
She did. She exercised her agency and she said no. But the predator immediately leveraged the digital footprint she had unknowingly provided.
He had ammunition now?
He did. He threatened to find her because he had a picture of her face and he had her name.
So the boundary is tested and it is immediately met with an existential threat.
Right.
This marks the transition from deception to hostage-taking.
Hostage-taking, that is the perfect word for it. And the severity of that hostage situation is compounded by a technological feature she mentions.
Almost as an aside.
Yeah, she mentions it almost as an aside in her writing, but it is the fulcrum of the entire nightmare.
What did she say?
She writes, "It's worth noting that I wasn't aware of it, but at the time my location was enabled on Snapchat, so he was able to find out where I was."
God. The shift from location as context to location as broadcast.
Yeah. Explain that shift, because it's crucial.
Well, in the early days of social media, location might mean a static hometown listed on a profile, right? You just type in Chicago or whatever.
Right, just text on a page.
But features like the Snap Map, they turned mobile devices into real-time homing beacons.
For real-time tracking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It maps the digital avatar directly onto exact physical coordinates. And for an adolescent, the smartphone is arguably their most intimate possession.
Oh, absolutely. It's their whole world.
It's their social lifeline, it's their diary, their entertainment. To suddenly realize that this very device, this thing you keep in your pocket or sleep next to, has been broadcasting your precise physical location to a hostile adult.
It creates a shattering cognitive dissonance.
Yes, the screen is no longer a barrier. It's a window he is looking through.
The digital threat just instantly bleeds into physical reality. He's no longer just text on a screen.
No, he is a set of coordinates.
And those coordinates are terrifyingly close to hers. He knows her street. He knows her neighborhood.
He knows where she sleeps.
Yeah. And he weaponized that physical proximity to escalate the threat even further. He didn't just threaten her, which is bad enough. He targeted her mother.
This is a classic horrific tactic.
He stated he would show her mother everything, all the interactions, and this is so hard to even say he threatened to kill her mother.
We really need to analyze this specific psychological devastation of targeting the mother here.
Please, because to a kid, that's everything.
It is. For a 13-year-old, the primary attachment figure, usually the mother, is the ultimate source of safety and regulation in the world.
Right, that's home base.
By threatening the mother's life and, simultaneously threatening to destroy the mother's perception of the daughter by showing her these forced, manipulated interactions.
He's attacking from both sides.
He is. The abuser is executing a textbook isolation strategy.
He is severing the tether between the victim and her only safe harbor.
Exactly. He's constructing an impossible double bind.
A double bind, meaning she can't win either way.
Right. Think about it from her perspective. If she speaks up and seeks help, she believes she is triggering the literal physical death of her mother, or at the very least, the death of her mother's love and approval because of the photos.
The shame.
The shame. But if she stays silent, she must endure the abuse entirely alone.
Oh my God.
It forces a child to assume the role of the protector of the parent.
That is completely backwards.
It's a complete inversion of the natural family dynamic. And that inversion, it's a form of psychological torture before any physical abuse even occurs.
It's a hostage situation where the ransom is her own safety. And this is exactly where we have to forcefully push back on the narrative the survivor has constructed to make sense of this.
We really do.
Because in her post, right after detailing the threat involving her face and name, she writes this in parentheses. She says, "He wouldn't have done it otherwise, but I was young and naive."
She's blaming herself.
She's blaming herself for giving in to his demands to call him or interact with him. She perceives her compliance as a fatal mistake born of youthful ignorance.
It is such a heartbreaking rationalization. But it is deeply common among survivors.
Why? Why do they do that?
Well, we need to reframe this completely for her and for anyone listening. What she perceives as naivety was, in fact, an advanced, highly calibrated neurobiological survival response.
Survival response.
Yes. In trauma literature, we often focus on fight or flight, right? Everyone knows fight or flight.
Sure, yeah. Adrenaline kicks in.
Right. But in situations characterized by a massive power imbalance where escape is impossible and fighting guarantees destruction, the nervous system deploys a different tactic.
Which is?
Fawning.
Appeasement as survival.
Yes. Fawning is not consent. It is not weakness.
It's a biology.
It is the autonomic nervous system taking the wheel and doing whatever is necessary to de-escalate an immediate lethal threat. It's trying to keep the organism alive.
So, by complying with the man who held her exact physical location and threatened her mother's life,
She was executing a brilliant, desperate strategy of harm reduction.
she was actively protecting her mother's life with the only tool she had available, her own compliance. She didn't make a foolish mistake. She negotiated a hostage situation with zero training and the highest possible stakes.
She's keeping them both alive.
Her compliance was proof of her instinct to protect, not proof of her naivety.
Absolutely.
But of course, that forced compliance became the wedge the abuser used to incrementally dismantle her remaining defenses.
He used her survival instinct against her.
He did. And this bridges the gap between the digital threats and the physical nightmare that followed.
The escalation.
Right. She details a month where he forced her to interact digitally. He forced her to watch him, exposed himself, insulted her, threatened her, and forced her to touch herself.
It's horrific.
She says this happened at least 12 times in 1 month. And she writes, "I cried and said no."
I cried and said no. Those 12 interactions, the abuser was utilizing them as a somatic training ground.
A training ground.
Yes. This wasn't just random, chaotic abuse. It was a methodical erosion of her physical and emotional boundaries.
Methodical. That makes it so much worse.
Every time she cried, every time she said no, and every time he forced the interaction anyway, he was retraining her nervous system to understand that her resistance was futile.
He was breaking her down.
He was teaching her that her boundaries simply did not exist in his reality.
He was breaking the lock on the door before he ever stepped foot on the property.
That's exactly it.
And then he used that location data, he tracked her patterns, he found the window of time when the protector of the house, her mother, was absent.
He found the vulnerability.
And he came to her home, he breached the physical boundary, and he raped and abused her.
In her own home.
In her own home.
Yeah.
A cycle of abuse that she states lasted for 3 agonizing years.
3 years. The violation of the home is a specific compounding layer of trauma.
How so?
Well, in evolutionary psychology, the home, or the den, is the baseline for parasympathetic downregulation.
Meaning it's where we go to calm down.
Yes. It is the one environment where a mammal can truly drop its guard, where the nervous system can finally rest and digest and repair.
But when the site of the trauma is the home itself,
The environment meant for safety literally becomes the trigger for terror.
the sanctuary is entirely breached. It reminds me of the biological concept of a keystone species, but inverted.
A keystone species, explain that.
Like, if you remove a keystone species from an environment, the entire ecosystem collapses, right?
Right.
Here, the home is the keystone of psychological stability. When the predator infiltrates the living room or the bedroom, the foundational architecture of safety just collapses.
It rumbles.
Where do you go to retreat when the monster is already inside the fortress?
The tragic reality is that you don't retreat. You lose the capacity for true rest.
You just can't turn it off.
The nervous system becomes permanently locked into sympathetic arousal. Hypervigilance,
Always waiting for the next attack.
always. Because if the locked house isn't safe, then nowhere on earth is safe. And to endure that chronic state of threat for 3 years,
3 years.
while simultaneously navigating the standard, demanding developmental milestones of high school.
Right. I mean, just pause and consider the sheer staggering endurance of that.
It's almost unfathomable.
Waking up, eating breakfast, going to algebra, sitting in the cafeteria, doing homework,
Pretending everything is normal.
all while harboring a radioactive secret, all while knowing that at any moment the digital homing beacon could summon the physical nightmare back into her living room,
She had to build a watertight bulkhead inside her own mind.
severing the teenager trying to survive high school from the victim enduring chronic abuse.
That level of compartmentalization, it keeps you alive,
Yeah.
yes, but it extracts a massive toll.
It has to.
The energy required to maintain that internal separation is astronomical. It leaves deep, complex internal wounds that persist long after the physical proximity to the abuser has ended.
Which brings us to the profound aftermath she is navigating today.
Her current reality.
The internal landscape of her present reality. She uses specific, really devastating language to describe what she is carrying.
What words does she use?
She speaks of a, quote, truly unbearable feeling of unease. She says she carries a terrible scar.
A terrible scar.
Yeah. And most critically, she writes this. I felt bad about my body for a long time, and I still do because of it. I feel dirty, like it's my fault that if I hadn't listened to him, I wouldn't be in this state.
Those words, dirty and my fault.
Yeah.
They are the absolute hallmarks of projective identification and the internalization of shame.
Projective identification. Break that down for us, because this is the core of where our validation needs to be directed today.
It is. We have to unpack why a survivor of violent home invasion and sustained coercion walks away feeling like the dirt belongs to them.
Because fundamentally, the act of abuse is inherently degrading, right? And the perpetrator cannot tolerate the reality of their own monstrous behavior.
Exactly. So what do? They force the victim to carry the psychological toxic waste of the crime.
The abuser projects their own disgust onto the victim.
Precisely. They treat the victim's bodily autonomy with such profound disregard that the victim inevitably internalizes that devaluation.
She feels dirty because she was treated as an object to be defiled.
Yes. But the critical truth that must be repeatedly reinforced to her and to anyone listening is that the dirt, the shame, and the degradation belong entirely and exclusively to the man who committed the act.
Entirely. She is the canvas he threw mud at.
Yes. The canvas is not inherently muddy. It has simply been subjected to the actions of someone else.
I want to visualize the weight of what she is carrying, that unbearable feeling of unease she talks about, because it can be hard for people who haven't experienced this to grasp why the pain doesn't just fade when the abuse stops.
It's hard to see from the outside.
It is. So think about the architectural concept of a tensegrity structure.
Okay, what's that?
You know those sculptures made of rigid poles and tension wires that seem to just float in midair?
Oh, right. They look like they defy gravity.
Yeah. They hold their shape through continuous, perfectly balanced internal tension. Every wire is pulling just enough.
Got it.
Now imagine one of those crucial wires is suddenly subjected to immense unnatural strain. The sculpture might still look intact from the outside. It hasn't collapsed. But the energy required to maintain that shape, the sheer mechanical stress coursing through every wire just to keep the structure upright, it's astronomical.
That is an incredibly accurate representation of chronic trauma.
Really?
Oh, yeah. From the outside, the person is functioning. They are going to work. They are speaking with friends. The house looks painted. The lawn is mowed.
But inside?
Internally, the foundation is cracked. The system is groaning under the phantom load of that unresolved threat. The unbearable unease, she describes that, is the somatic experience of that relentless internal tension.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting to simply exist when your nervous system is working overtime every single minute to prevent a collapse.
And within that tension, her mind is generating this narrative of self-blame.
If I hadn't listened to him, I wouldn't be in this state.
Exactly. We touched on fawning earlier, but we really need to dive deeper into why the brain actively chooses to manufacture guilt rather than just accept what actually happened.
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Why does her mind insist she's the author of her own destruction?
Because accepting the alternative is psychologically annihilating.
Annihilating.
Yes. If she accepts the objective truth that she was a powerless child, that a predator bypassed all societal safeguards, manipulated a digital platform, invaded her home, and violently altered her life for 3 years without her having any ability to stop it,
That's terrifying.
then she has to accept that the world is governed by chaotic, terrifying nihilism. It means safety is a total illusion.
And the trauma could replicate itself at any second from any direction.
Exactly. It's the terror of absolute powerlessness.
So the brain builds a defense mechanism out of guilt.
Yes. The brain constructs a false narrative of control. It says the world isn't chaotic. There was a specific rule I broke.
I made a calculation error. I listened to him. I engaged.
Right. By assigning fault to herself, she creates a retroactive illusion of agency. If it was her fault, then there is a formula to prevent it from happening again.
Just don't make that mistake next time.
Exactly. Self-blame is a desperate, protective lie the psyche tells itself to stave off the terror of a completely unpredictable predatory world.
It's a tragic paradox. The guilt is agonizing, but somehow it feels safer than powerlessness.
It feels like control.
Our role as a society, as friends, as professionals, is to help survivors dismantle that protective lie without abandoning them to the terror.
It requires constant, gentle, unwavering externalization of the blame.
We have to point to the perpetrator continuously.
Continuously. Until the survivor feels safe enough to put that heavy backpack of shame down for good.
And importantly, she isn't navigating this entirely in a vacuum.
No, she's not.
Her post transitions to a really vital element of her current environment. It highlights the profound sociology of support systems.
This part is so beautiful.
It is. She writes something that just stopped me in my tracks. She says, I have vulnerable people close to me who help me, who don't know why I'm so unwell, but who help me nonetheless.
Who don't know why I'm so unwell. but help me nonetheless. There's an immense regulating power in what we might call unknowing support.
Unknowing support, that's a great term. Because we often operate under the assumption that deep connection requires total disclosure.
Right. We think our friends or partners need to know the darkest, most traumatic details of our past to truly support us.
But what she is describing is an ecosystem of care that operates entirely on the baseline of her inherent worth.
Yes. They see the tension in the structure. They recognize she is unwell.
But they don't demand a forensic accounting of her trauma before extending grace. They just show up.
They just show up. And the therapeutic value of that cannot be overstated.
Why is it so valuable?
When someone is carrying the label of victim or survivor heavily in their own mind, sharing that label with others can sometimes, well, unintentionally alter the dynamic.
People start acting differently.
Exactly. Even well-meaning friends might begin to view her through the lens of fragility. They might walk on eggshells. They might inadvertently center her trauma in all their interactions.
Which just reinforces the presence of the trauma. You're constantly reminded of it.
Right. But these friends, because they don't know the specifics, they just treat her as her.
They treat her as a colleague, a peer, a friend.
They provide an environment of absolute normalcy.
And for a nervous system that has been hijacked by chronic threat.
The simple, boring predictability of normal human connection is a profound regulating force.
It is a space where she doesn't have to be her trauma. She can just be.
Their actions provide continuous, undeniable evidence that she is lovable and valuable, independent of what was done to her.
They are proving that she is not ruined.
And that her identity is vast enough to encompass far more than the pain she carries.
It's a powerful reminder for all of us, really. You don't need to be a crisis counselor to throw someone a lifeline.
Not at all.
We are constantly surrounded by people who are masking profound internal tension. The cashier, the neighbor, the friend who seems a little distant lately.
You never know what someone is holding.
You don't. Providing a steady baseline of warmth, patience, and non-judgmental support might literally be the scaffolding keeping their internal structure from collapsing.
You don't need to know the origin of the wound to apply the pressure of kindness.
Oh, I love that. You don't need to know the origin to apply the pressure of kindness.
Yeah.
And that scaffolding is clearly working for her because she is actively looking toward the horizon.
She really is. The final segment of her post is a testament to the neuroplasticity of resilience. She is reclaiming her narrative.
She writes, "Now I'm trying to move forward." She mentions finding an exceptional job that has taught me a lot about life.
Finding purpose.
Yeah. And then she delivers the emotional climax of the post. 3 words directed squarely at the man who did this to her.
Shame on you.
Shame on you.
The psychological trajectory from the beginning of her post to those final 3 words is a masterclass in healing.
It is. She begins by grappling with feeling dirty and at fault, navigating this heavy fog of internalized blame.
But by the end, she pierces right through that fog with absolute clarity. Shame on you.
It is the righteous externalization of the toxic waste. She is finally, forcefully assigning the dirt to its rightful owner.
Righteous anger is such a critical milestone in recovery.
It signifies that the spell of manipulation is broken.
It does. It means she recognizes the fundamental injustice of what was done to her. And she refuses to carry the perpetrator's emotional burden anymore.
It is an act of countermapping. He mapped her physical location to hunt her and diminish her life.
And now she's drawing a new map.
Exactly. She's drawing a new map for her future. And she is explicitly exiling him and the shame he represents beyond the borders of that new life.
Her ability to secure an exceptional job, her openness to learning about life, her capacity to be a good friend to those who support her.
It's like kintsugi, right?
The Japanese art.
Yeah, kintsugi, where they repair broken pottery with gold.
Right. They don't hide the cracks.
Exactly. The break is a part of the history of the object rather than something to disguise. Her terrible scar is real, but her ability to work, learn, be loved, and rightfully assign shame to her abuser, that is the gold holding everything together.
She is not ruined. She is incredibly strong.
She is. He caused catastrophic damage, but he did not win.
No, he didn't.
The fact that she sat down, organized her thoughts, and hit submit on this post is a massive victory in itself.
Abuse requires darkness and silence to maintain its power over a person.
And by speaking the truth, even into the anonymous void of the internet, she has flooded that architecture of coercion with light.
She is defining the reality of the situation on her own terms now.
She is declaring that the story is no longer just what happened to her. The story is now her survival, her clarity, and her forward momentum.
It's just incredible.
Looking back at the entirety of what we've discussed today, the scope of her journey is staggering. We started by examining how the very architecture of a digital platform was weaponized,
Bypassing a child's evolutionary threat detection.
manipulating the natural, healthy developmental stage of a 13-year-old.
We tracked how that digital deception escalated into a hostage dynamic, utilizing location broadcasting to shatter the boundary between the screen and the physical world.
Severing her from the safety of her mother.
Yes,
We confronted the nightmare of the home invasion, the profound betrayal of the physical sanctuary, and the 3 years of chronic, agonizing compartmentalization required to survive high school while enduring sustained abuse.
and we analyzed the heavy, complex burden of those hidden scars. The projective identification of shame and the brain's desperate attempt to manufacture self-blame to avoid the terror of powerlessness.
Yet we also saw the incredible regulating power of her unknowing support system, friends who anchor her in normalcy and remind her of her inherent worth.
And we finished with her powerful, defiant reclamation of her future, marked by her exceptional job and her righteous, accurate redirection of shame.
So, to the woman who wrote this post, and to anyone listening who is carrying a similar invisible weight, the strength it takes to simply stand upright under that phantom load is heroic.
It truly is.
The shame is not yours. The dirt is not yours. The fault is not yours.
It never was.
The fact that you are still here, still learning, still trying to move forward is the ultimate proof of your indestructible resilience. The future you are mapping out belongs entirely to you.
Truly. It is an honor to witness that kind of strength.
As we wrap up this deep dive today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to carry into your interactions this week.
It's an important one.
We spent time marveling at the power of her friends, the people who provide a lifeline simply by offering warmth and normalcy without needing to know the horrific details of why she is unwell.
Their unknowing support is a beautiful, vital thing.
It is, but consider the next step. If the presence of supportive friends who don't even know the truth can be such a powerful lifeline, imagine the profound healing that becomes possible when we create a society safe enough for survivors to finally tell them. Wow, how can you, in your own life, cultivate a presence so safe that someone carrying an invisible backpack of trauma might finally feel secure enough to set it down?
The architecture of trauma relies on isolation and silence.
Exactly. You have the power, through simple, consistent kindness, to be the environment where that silence is finally safely broken. Think about that.